We'll go ahead and call the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority June 7th board meeting to order. And items from the chairman. There is one item, and it's the MAPS 4 presentation of the transit plan growth with the BRT alternative analysis and today we have the Kimberly Horn consultants, Luke Schmidt and Jill Gibson, who are going to come and make this presentation. So come on up to the podium. We'll get you started right off first bat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Jill Gibson. I'm the project manager for the alternatives analysis. I'm joined by Luke Schmidt. So today we're going to provide a brief update on where we are with the alternatives analysis project. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. So we're going to touch on project schedule, our technical work summary, our public involvement and stakeholder engagement, and then our recommended alternatives, and then next steps on implementation. So quickly, on project schedule, we're at the tail end of about a 1.5 year long effort. We are in the select phase, which is really narrowing down the many alternatives that has been studied and discussed in the public to recommend an alignment to then advance into the next phase of the project. So we worked with many of the stakeholders in the community to develop the project's overall goals and objectives, which just really briefly include 5: connecting communities and resources, facilitating prosperity and growth, expanding equitable mobility options, moving people efficiently, which is really important for BRT, as y'all know, and utilizing available resources. So we use those goals and objectives to evaluate the 6 different alternatives that we studied. And so we use the evaluation criteria there on the left, and then have a heat map on the right to show how these alignments performed with our goals and objectives. And so green is really consistent with the goals, so performs really well. And then red is less consistent with the goals. And so I think we analyzed these 6 alternatives, just in summary here on the screen. When we went through the analysis and discussed with the public, we looked at each different segment, and we knew that through our study we would come up with ultimately a preferred alignment that were different components of these 6 alternatives. And so using the goals and objectives, we conducted a detailed evaluation analysis using this framework, which then led us to evaluating 24 objectives to identify the highest performing segments. So these are just kind of screenshots of the technical work that went into the analysis that will ultimately be a part of the final alternatives analysis report. So I wanted to recap the public involvement and stakeholder engagement to date. So we have held 19 public events, open houses, 15 pop-up events, connected with close to 500 folks in person through these events, all throughout the 2 corridors. So on the map, we have in the red dot are the open house locations, and the blue dot are the various pop-up events that the team talked to the members of the community about the different alignments and alternatives. We also held pretty extensive online engagement through surveys and map-based engagement, really good responses, close to 500 survey responses. And then just a quick summary of the stakeholder engagement, really working closely with various community members and organizations, meeting with them for the last 1.5 years, and providing updates and providing opportunities for folks to weigh in and provide input, both in the Northeast and the South. So just wanted to capture some of the feedback summary that we've heard. Folks are really excited about the better access that BRT will provide to healthcare centers and educational facilities in particular. We've heard a lot about the importance of reliable and frequent service, and community members are very excited about that. more connections to employment opportunities, access to key destinations, and importantly, we've heard a lot about the importance of service to historically disadvantaged populations. And I will say too, in the last round of feedback where we discussed the recommended locally preferred alternative, really a lot of energy and excitement for the alignment itself, and the questions are more about, hey, how soon can this service come online? So with that, Luke's going to summarize our recommended alternative.
Great. Thank you, Jill. So today is an exciting day. We're going to talk through the recommended corridors that will wrap up this alternatives analysis and be a locally preferred alternative to progress forward. So this map has a lot of different lines. So we're going to spend just a minute kind of stepping through the different elements on it. The purple line on the map is the MAPSOR BRT corridor. Again, this is all centered at the Santa Fe station downtown. There's a few different colors on the map. We'll focus on the purple lines first. That is the recommended locally preferred alternative today. That corridor will start on the very southwest side of the screen, down at the Amazon warehouse and the industrial complex, heading north on South May by OCCC, east on Southwest 59th, north on Southwestern Avenue by Integris, and then east through Capitol Hill on Southwest 29th, north on Shields through the downtown and through Automobile Alley, then heading east on Northwest 13th by the Bed Tower and the VA, and then north on Kelly, east on 23rd, and then north on MLK going to the Adventure District. So a couple things we want to point out about this line is there's both solid lines, purple lines, and dashed purple lines. The solid purple lines will be the dedicated facilities, so business access and turn lanes that we'll step through on the next slide. The dashed lines are mixed traffic, so the BRT line will be in the same flow as travel lanes. So similar to Northwest Rapid, using similar tools for both dedicated and mixed traffic. All of the dots on the map are potential station pairs that will be further evaluated as part of the engineering and environmental. On this map also, we're showing red lines. Those red lines are the Regional Transportation Authority work that's currently underway as well. There's RTA specifically has a north-south high-capacity transit corridor planned and an east high-capacity transit corridor planned out to Tinker. And then 2 west corridors to West Oklahoma City and to the airport that reached a draft recommendation last month. So we wanted to update this map with that information so you can see. And then also Northwest Rapid, we're showing that in blue as well. So you can see how all these different high-capacity corridors work within this area. One other thing to point out is we have a few station pairs that have red circles around those, both at Northwest 13th and Southwest 29th. Those are opportunities that we see to co-locate between both this BRT project and the RTA north-south commuter rail corridor. So we see some great opportunities there with interconnectivity as well. Again, this is a 17-mile corridor with 26 station pairs that are currently planned, and almost 50,000 residents and 50,000 jobs are connected as part of this corridor. So really exciting from that standpoint as well. One thing to note too, a lot of stakeholder engagement. Since the draft recommendations, there's been refinements in Automobile Alley to refine the station pairs there to better connect with the Streetscape project that's ongoing now. So one of the things we mentioned is different types of facilities. There's both mixed traffic and business access and turn lanes that were shown on the map itself. Very similar to Northwest Rapid and how those would actually operate. The one other thing that we wanted to note is we see an opportunity on Shields for a center running dedicated transit lane, specifically from the downtown to Capitol Hill. Because of the bridge grade separation, we're able to take advantage of that center lane as opposed to the outside lanes to not conflict with turn lanes. And just real quick on the station amenities itself, this will look very similar to Northwest Rapid as well, with an elevated platform. Ticketing that would be at the station itself, shelters, benches, lighting, as well as trash receptacles and bike racks. So very similar type of context that we'll see from Northwest Rapid. And then we also wanted to show a couple renderings of what these stations could look like. So on the left is a rendering of 2 Far Side stations near the Science Museum in the Adventure District. On the right is a rendering at OCCC of what a potential rapid bus and station platform could look like. And from a service standpoint, We're anticipating similar service to Northwest Rapid, where we have 12-minute headways from 6:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the week, and then 15-minute headways from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the weekends, and then 30-minute headways after 7 p.m. and 20-minute between 5 a.m. and 6:30 during the week. So very similar service to Northwest Rapid as well.
So I wanted to wrap up with the project benefits. So we conducted a benefit cost analysis to really understand the project's performance. So what went into that is understanding community benefits that are quantifiable, corridor benefits, and rider benefits. So a BCA, a benefit cost analysis, is a way to understand the project's performance with potential federal discretionary grants. And so the good news is that this corridor performed really well. And so which told us that, hey, this project could be competitive for federal discretionary grants, which is great news. And so, many projects, large transit infrastructure projects, use federal dollars to support the project's implementation, which kind of leads into the next slide in terms of next steps and timeline. So as I think we mentioned, we will be going to City Council in early July, asking for the approval of the alignment. So the locally preferred alternative, really it's approval on the alignment. There's a lot more work to be done, as Luke mentioned, on details of station placement, et cetera. And then the next steps would be conducting some pre-project development activities, which is doing more detailed ridership modeling work in coordination with FTA. To leave the option open for potentially pursuing federal funds to supplement this project. And then after that, the next steps would be going into preliminary engineering and design, and then ultimately planned construction in the 2028 timeframe to be complete by 2029. With that concludes our presentation. Welcome the discussion.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on this? Thank you all for presenting. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on to residents to be heard. I understand there are none registered. Okay. Item 4 is approval of our minutes from the May 3rd COPTA board meeting. If you all could, somebody would move and second, and please vote electronically. Motion passes. Consent docket. There are 17 items on the consent docket. And as we start out, item B is a mental health association renewal of the contract. And I understand that we have Kelly Fry and Sheila Fargo here to maybe make comments before we start down that. So would you all like to come forward and say something? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you all for giving us a few moments of your time this morning. I'm Kelly Dyer Fry with the Mental Health Association Oklahoma. I am director over the Oklahoma City operations, and we have offices in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. The partnership with you guys has been really exciting for us because we love it when something actually works and works so well. So I am not the expert. Sheila Farley is. And I'm going to let Sheila do the presentation to you and answer any questions you might have. So, thank you. Let's see. Oh, there you are, Sheila.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning. I'm Sheila Farley. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the clinical director for our Oklahoma City office right here in Oklahoma City. So the Mental Health Association is the state's premier boots-on-the-ground nonprofit organization whose expertise and work exists primarily at the intersection of mental illness and homelessness, fighting every day to promote mental health, prevent suicide and homelessness, and transform the justice system. So our Embark Embedded Case Manager is trained in crisis intervention and de-escalation as an alternative to police response. They're also a dedicated assessor, so what that means is in our city, if you are unsheltered, there is an assessment that must be done so that you can get on a housing list. And so we have people within the city who are trained to do those assessments, and your case manager is actually trained to do that. They also connect people who frequent the transit center to just the critical community resources that we have. So I'm really excited to talk about the numbers. So of course, it takes a little time to find the right person, so it did take us a little bit to hire. She was hired towards the end of August. We took the month of September to train her, and then she stepped foot at TC in the beginning of October. So I'm really proud of these numbers. So just from October to May, she was able to make contact with 506 individuals who frequent the transit center or on the buses. She provided 98 bus passes. She completed 42 housing assessments, and out of those 42, 8 people were housed. She also helped provide 28 vital documents. So that could be like IDs, birth certificates, or social security cards, which a lot of times is a huge barrier for people who are unhoused. So to have those items is a game changer. She also provided transportation to 30 people because maybe the bus wasn't the right transportation, so we were able to take care of that. And the one part I'm really proud of, we have a street medicine team. And so sometimes at the transit center, there are people who need medical care, and maybe 911's not quite the right number to call. So she was able to dispatch our street medicine team who was able to help those folks. So 20 people, we were able to divert 911 and use our medical staff on that. And then she also provides other resources. So 33 people were offered alternative transportation. Sometimes Embark Bus might not be the right place, and so there are other transportations that she was able to connect them with. She connected 119 people to our street outreach team. 24 of them she referred to our community response. So community response is a team that's going to come out quite quickly to really address those needs, and so she was able to utilize that resources. 273 people were referred to shelter. That's a huge number, especially through the winter. That's really important. 28 received referrals to substance use services, 60 to mental health services, 16 to domestic violence services, 19 to criminal diversion, and 27 were referred to employment services. So just a little bit about some of our programs. You heard me talk about the referrals that she sent out to the resources, and a lot of those referrals come in-house. So our street outreach team, they are that team that crosses the bridge. So there's us, and then there's people that live in the woods, right? And so we need somebody to be able to connect with them, and that's what our street outreach team does. They do regular contact. They work to build trust with people. They're very consistent in what they do. They never make a promise that they can't keep. They provide things like bus passes, care packs. They help people obtain vital documents, which is what they need to get into housing. They also provide connection to other resources as well. And our street medicine team, kind of the same thing. They're out there in encampments, building those relationships, checking vitals, doing wound care, helping people obtain prescriptions that maybe they're having a hard time obtaining. They also monitor health. They do health education and then transportation to different doctor's appointments. Oops, I went the wrong way. Sorry, guys. So we also have a drop-in center. So Lottie House is on the east side of Oklahoma City, and anyone's welcome at Lottie House. At Lottie House, we're able to also help people with documents, connect them to the different services in Oklahoma City. We provide laundry services. They're able to charge phones. We have a small food pantry program out of Lottie House for emergency food needs. Clothing, we provide socialization and housing opportunities as well. And A Better Way, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of A Better Way. It's our program that's an alternative to panhandling. So our Better Way van goes out 3 times a week. They go to areas that are considered hotspots for panhandling. Anyone that's willing to participate, they get on the van, we go out to the city parks, kind of clean up. At the end of the day, they receive $65 for their work that day and the opportunity to begin working with an employment specialist and a case manager to overcome their barriers to employment and help them find sustainable employment. We also have the Mental Health Assistance Center, and this is for anyone in Oklahoma. A lot of times when we're dealing with mental health issues, it's really hard to reach out. We don't know where to go. So anyone's able to call Mental Health Association, and they provide just general mental health information, clinical consultations, screenings, referrals to community resources. We also have a pro bono counseling program, so if someone doesn't quite have the means to get that mental health treatment, we're able to, if they qualify, we're able to help them get that for free. The really good thing I like to point out about this is a lot of times when people call to get help, you may get given 10 more numbers, call these folks, they might be able to help you. We don't do that. We're gonna continue to follow up. If we give you a number and you can't reach someone, call us back and we're gonna make sure you get connected to those services that you need. And thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions or comments?
Yes. First, congratulations on just critical work that you already know is, vital to our residents. Could you help me understand when you say connecting people to employment, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So with the case manager and an employment specialist, the case manager works on overcoming those barriers. A lot of people who are needing employment don't have an ID or a social security card, which are two things that you need for employment. The employment specialist sits down with that person and kind of goes over whatever skills they may have, what type of jobs that they're looking for. They get them interview ready, they work on resumes, they fill out applications. They also, almost in a way, work as like a job coach. So the employment specialist is actually connecting with employers and working with them on hiring the folks that we're working with.
Okay. That's great. That's on my mind. I'm obsessed right now as we're working on our community benefits agreement. I'm truly obsessed with the numbers I've heard from the City Chamber of Commerce. Your work is so impressive and it's really got my wheels turning. Just to share with the board what I've already shared with the council, I've learned from the chamber that about 37% of our workforce, which is eligible to work, 16 to 64, and this is probably a lot of the people we're serving with Embark, but 16 to 64, that workforce, 37% of our people in Oklahoma City are disconnected from the workforce. You're already nodding. How did you tell me?
Because it's a certain group of students that we're looking at as well, our disconnected population.
Go ahead and say that again.
Yeah, we're looking at our students as well, and our disconnected population. So there's a section of the population in the workforce that is essentially disconnected from work, disconnected from school, and so they're not engaged in several of those levels. And so it's basically a group that's coming on our radar and trying to see how we can better serve that population and get them re-engaged.
Well, I think we're going to need to talk, and I suspect the board's going to be very useful here as we have a working group that's helping to look at one final component of the community benefits agreement. But to your point, we've learned it's 37% of our population that's workforce eligible. Digging down into those numbers, I'm glad you mentioned the students, because I think something the chamber kind of missed are the students, but it identified veterans, people with justice-involved backgrounds, the disabled, and a caretaker who's maybe taking care of a child or someone who's elderly, right? And I suspected you were right with the students. And one of the things, I'm really glad you spoke up here, because one of the things that we've also found from that research is these numbers are the highest on the southeast side of our city and southwest. So that BRT service that's coming online there is going to be vital. But I think one of the things I'm going to probably need to bring you into the working group, and anyone who's been working with Sheila from Embark on this, because those success rates are critical, and I would like to replicate what you're doing, because when initially we talked about the community benefits agreement, the mayor was excited and City Manager Freeman. They're like, yeah, we'll have a career fair. That's what they thought the workforce intermediary component of the community benefits agreements. Remember, it was $15 an hour wage, a workforce intermediary to connect workers to work at the arena, and then a good faith labor peace agreement with the arena operator saying that they wouldn't hire a consultant to engage in a negative campaign against possibly unionizing. But the career fair can't be enough. We're going to have to be very intentional. That workforce intermediary has to be very intentional about going out to connect to that 37%. So I want to learn, and I mean, going to like the transit centers, like I'm just obsessed with this because these are my people. This is my income group that I've grown up around. These are a lot of the residents. I've knocked their doors. I'm just obsessed with connecting people to this. The more I've learned how big that number is, and Embark can help us connect them to. I linger on it because when I'm obsessed with something, you're going to hear about it, unfortunately. But fortunately for the people who need that service. So I'm going to make an official invite to you on that.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? I just want to say that I think before October, we didn't engage in mental health outreach as a transit agency. We drove buses and did vital things, but the number of connections that you've made in that short period of time from October is pretty tremendous, and so we appreciate your help and work, and look forward to renewing this agreement and continuing.
Well, and I will tell you, it's been so impressive that Tulsa has actually been looking at this and asking questions. Wait, you have a case manager in your transit system? How can we get that? So just know, like, this is groundbreaking for you all. You're being an example, so thank you.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned Tulsa because I've been thinking beyond just connecting people to jobs at the arena. I've been thinking about the shortage of case managers. We have that shortage, and so this wonderful work that you all are doing is only possible with those case managers and those employment service specialists. And so I think we've also got to be training people from within this demographic to go into those fields so we can shore up that stability workforce. That is just, again, an obsession because people who complain about homelessness, if you really do want to address it, then this case manager is what I've learned from you. And now seeing this data just verify it. So,
And you're absolutely right, because when you think about somebody who hasn't been in the workforce for a while, a lot that's lost is confidence. And so that case manager is working to build that confidence again in them. I mean, because you can say, hey, here's a job, but if you don't have that confidence, the job's not yours.
thanks for that articulation. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that was item B in our consent docket. We have another one that we need a motion to amend the agenda, and that's item Q. And so I'm going to read the revised item Q, which is an interlocal service agreement with the City of Norman to provide transportation services, vehicle cleaning, washing, and fueling services by Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority for fixed route and paratransit bus services. Estimated cost of services of $3,945,318. Estimated revenue of $4,339,850, and collecting a risk assumption fee of $200,000 to be paid by Norman effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2025. And Jason, do you want to comment on this, or?
Just to
It's a slight
clarify
variation,
that-
it's a Scrivener's type.
Yeah, we're asking essentially that the board amend the agenda so that it matches that title in the memo. As we prepare the agenda in the memo, really the difference here is we called out the risk assessment fee in the title of the memo, and on the agenda we had it lumped into the revenues and expenses. We thought it would be better, more clarity to pull that risk amount out and didn't get that adjusted on the agenda itself. So.
Okay, so we need a motion to amend the agenda.
I move that we amend the agenda.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved. Oh, okay. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Okay, motion passes. Now, as part of item Q and item B, we have 17 items. Are there any others that any of the trustees would like pulled to discuss individually? If not, is there a motion to approve our consent docket? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 6 in our agenda. Item A is items for individual consideration. Again, we also have a Scrivener's error in this item, which is in the first sentence, ratifying and approving addendas 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to add the words ratifying and awarding contract. So ratifying and were left out. They were in the memo, but they were not in the agenda. So this is to ratify and award contract to Manhattan Road and Bridge Incorporated Project MC0672 First American Museum Riverboat Landing for $6,617,877.54, assigning Professional Services Industries Incorporated as testing laboratory and approving contract and bonds.
Yes, sir.
Jason, do you want to comment on this, and then we'll have a motion to amend
Sure.
the agenda?
Yeah, so in keeping with the item that the board approved last month, recognizing that we received bids on the First Americans Museum landing, we had talked as a board about authorizing the administrator to award the contract in the event that we could secure all the required funding. You know, we had a funding gap. We talked about working with some additional FTA funds and really trying to put that funding plan together. And then having the authority from the board to go ahead and award that contract within the required time frame. So just to report back that all of that occurred. There was one exception where there was a particular source of FTA funds that we were looking at using for this construction project. Later determined through some more work with the FTA that was not an ideal source of funds for this type of project. Instead, we will be supplementing the funding gap with some ARPA funds that were awarded to the City of Oklahoma City that there would be a potential chance of those funds not being obligated within that ARPA timeframe. So it's a way to leverage those funds that were awarded to the city for this project. And the entire funding source strategy, if you will, is outlined in the memo, but it does consist primarily of that competitive grant from the FTA, local funding contribution from the Chickasaw/Oconee, some FTA, Section 70 ferry boat grants, so it has to be used for these type of services, and then the ARPA. So I want to just thank everybody that helped get this funding plan together, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on this item A? If not, we will receive a motion to not to ratify, approve, and award, but to a separate motion to amend the agenda to add the word ratifying and in front of the word awarding the contract.
So moved.
So Robert has moved,
Second.
Laura seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, so the amendment passes. Now we will have a motion to ratify, approve, and award the item. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Okay, item passes. Moving on to item B, which is a sole source agreement with Taylor Traffic Systems for transit signal priority operations, preventive maintenance, system support, and onboarding training. Estimated annual cost of $300,000, retroactive to January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2027. Jason?
Yeah, I'll try to keep my comments brief on these items, so if you have questions, obviously, please let me know. But I know we have 8 items here to still go through. But this is a sole source agreement, as mentioned, with Taylor Traffic Systems. This is the consultant that's assisted us with the streetcar TSP, was vital in standing up the TSP for our bus rapid transit. And then we also have to think about, we have additional traffic signal priority technology coming as part of the MAPS 4 project that will be applied to the fixed route bus system. So all of a sudden we went from a few signalized intersections with the streetcar to a growing number throughout our system, which is great. It's going to help our system be better, but we want to have some consulting services to help us maintain, make sure those systems are up and working, and when they do fail, because technology always has some issues, we have an expert we can involve to get the systems back online. And again, estimated cost is about $300,000.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on this item? If not, is there a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Item passes. Item C is the final acceptance of projects MC 0619, MS 0123, and WC 1029, the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit Center downtown at North Broadway Avenue and West Main Street, approving service on North Classen Boulevard to Northwest Expressway and Meridian Avenue, and placing maintenance bond in effect.
Yes, sir. So goes without saying, final acceptance of the BRT project. I know this board has been involved in enough construction projects to realize what the significance of that final acceptance is. But we're here today to present this to the board. Final accept the project, put the bonds into effect. You can see the total project cost through the projects that were described by the chairman is just a little bit over $17 million. However, with that, and we'll get into it in the next item, I believe, we're asking for final acceptance on the project as it is, that initial large contract that was awarded to Rudy Construction. But as we have made the commitment to the board, because we have some budget left over, we'll be adding some additional projects to the BRT corridor just to continue to enhance the pedestrian connectivity elements of our bus rapid transit service. So final accepting the project, but we're not done yet.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on item C? If not, is there a motion to accept? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. So item D then is a resolution authorizing additional work for construction improvements along the Rapid Northwest route utilizing Rudy Construction Company for pedestrian access improvements, cyclist safety access, commemorative plaque installation, additional bus lane markings, and maintenance improvements at Rapid Northwest transit platforms at an estimated cost of $173,337.16.
Yes, sir. So as I mentioned, we've accepted the project, but there's other items within that BRT corridor that we've talked about that we think will improve the service. And so what we're asking the board to do today is consider approving this resolution, authorizing the additional work. We're able to use an on-call contract that the city has with Rudy Construction, so keep that continuity. We can use the same contractor that we awarded a contract to also continue working and making these improvements. And I think the memo does a pretty good job of summarizing what those improvements are. I think the most vital improvement that we've all been looking forward to is that ADA accessible sidewalk connection from the BRT platform in front of Penn Square Mall to, the actual parking lot of the mall for the pedestrian access. And then there were other improvements that were described. The other thing that I'll mention is that we are working through these additional improvements, if you will, kind of sequentially and just a step at a time. So what we would anticipate is once we complete this group of projects, then again, we'll revisit our budget and start looking to see what resources we have, if any, which we think will have some additional budget, to award to even another set of projects that are coming. And they'll probably be centered mainly around pedestrian improvements, lots of crosswalk striping and painting that I know has come up in the BRT stakeholder group and that we've had on our priority list to look at when the project is done. So again, just communicating and conveying to the trust that those items are all still on a living document that we're working from as far as our priority list, and we'll bring them back to the trustees as budget allows and ask for approval.
You know about how much more money would be available if we stayed within our $173,000?
We're probably gonna have maybe just south of $1 million. Now, it's a little bit complicated in that to be able to leverage the full maximum grant amount, we have to have local funding as well. So we're working alongside, Public Works and other departments as local projects along the corridor are completed that match the project description, frees up additional grant funding for us to spend. So it's hard to put an exact number on it in case we fall, a little bit short on the local match, but we're working through it.
Are those funds available to be used for sidewalks that connect to our platforms?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything within the, really the original PGA paper grant agreement scope, which included sidewalks, crosswalks, pedestrian enhancements. I think signals were a part of that. It's pretty broad.
Okay, super. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the resolution? It's item D. Would you like us to vote?
I move to approve the item.
Laura made a motion, and Robert, here we go. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Thank you. Moving to item E, which is a memorandum of understanding approving the adjusted contract price for year 2 of the amended and restated professional services agreement with Hartsog Transit Services for the operation and maintenance of the Oklahoma City streetcar system, estimated annual amount of $6,109,336 from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Jason.
Yes, sir. This item really cues us up for next year's streetcar service that obviously we contract with Herzog to provide in terms of staffing, maintenance, operations. Last year the board approved a multi-year agreement with Herzog, and within that multi-year agreement there was essentially a CPI escalator, right? So each year the contract's going to go up some. In this case, it's roughly 3.1, just north of 3% for the base contract amount. So what we're asking the board to do today is just approve that MOU so that both parties are acknowledging and agreeing that we are going to be going into, essentially Herzog will bill us for the amount specified in the second year of the contract. We are agreeing to pay for those second year amounts that are specified in the contract. And then I think it's probably important to note, and I think we'll get into it a little bit more in the next item also, that $6.1 million includes, and I believe it's broken down in your memo, not only the base contract amount, so there's this base contract associated with labor and such, but it also includes the pass-through expenses. So there's various maintenance items that Herzog does on our behalf, and they turn around and bill us for those services, so it's considered a pass-through expense that we do need to get authorization from the board to be able to spend.
And that's item F for this year. Yes, it's the next item. But
I'm sorry. Item
E is
yeah,
for this next year,
which includes the pass-throughs, and then as I talk about item F, we'll address, we
Yeah,
need to add the pass-throughs.
exactly. Okay, are there any questions or comments on item E? If not, is there a motion to adopt or approve? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item F then is a resolution authorizing a change in the estimated annual cost for the amended and restated professional services agreement with Herzog Transit Services for the operation and maintenance of the Oklahoma City streetcar system. Cost increase of $1.3 million for a period ending June 30th, 2024.
Yes, sir. So with this item here, really what we're asking the board to do is recognize that in FY24, the current fiscal year that we're in, that is almost over, that the amount we're asking the board, asking the board to authorize to pay Herzog is increased by $1.3 million to account for not only the base contract amount that I had just explained with the previous item, but also the pass-through. So the short of it is what happened is when we brought this item, and we're going to have a similar situation on the next item, when we brought this item to the board to authorize the expenditures, we asked the board to authorize that base contract amount. But with our parking system, which is the next item, and with our streetcar system, we rely on those contracted vendors, if you will, to make a lot of repairs and maintenance and those pass-through expenses. So in order for us to pay and reimburse for those pass-throughs, we need the board to authorize that increased amount. So really what we're doing is just asking for that increased amount. It was already included in the budget. We just didn't include it in the board item.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments?
Could you clarify for me the difference between this 1.3 in item F and then that 1.1 in item E? For pass-through?
Sure. Yeah. So item F is the increase that we are requesting for this year, right?
The year that's almost over.
Yeah. I'm sorry, let me get my memo. I'm trying to find the memo on the other item here. Yeah, so it's really just a difference in our cost estimates. So both the current fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we will pay pass-through expenses. And so for the FY24 fiscal year, where we're asking for $1.3 million, we kind of know what those numbers are because we're almost done with the fiscal year. So we expect our pass-throughs to be about that amount. However, for item E, I guess it is, the next year's contract, we're simply estimating the pass-throughs to be a little bit less. We've got $1 million estimated.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they're estimates. We think it's probably what we're going to have to pay, but it can vary.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to adopt item F? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Item passes. Item G is a resolution authorizing a change in the estimated annual cost for professional services agreement with PCI Municipal Services, LLC for parking operations and facilities maintenance, estimated annual cost increase of $1 million for the period ending June 30th, 2027.
Right, and as I'd mentioned, this is really this same situation we had with the current year Herzog contract. PCI is our contracted vendor that we use to manage our parking, our off-street parking system. And again, when we brought the original contract to the board, we did not include the pass-throughs, so we're simply asking to include the pass-throughs in this year's contract so we can pay the vendor any of those reimbursables.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to adopt item G? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item H is a resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 compressed natural gas ADA accessible vans from the adopted Ohio Department of Transportation's Cooperative Purchasing Program contracts. Estimated cost of $482,467. Jason?
Yeah, so this item here is, it's pretty standard in terms of we're buying ADA paratransit vans, but I think the comments that are probably going to be interesting to the board at this point in time is just to remind us that we are now back on our path or our trajectory of making sure that our fleet is 100% alternative fuel propulsion. You know, when we ran into a real pinch, if you will, on vehicle availability, we kind of deviated from that goal of the board for alternative fuel propulsion, and we ended up buying some paratransit vehicles that run off gasoline. Our commitment at the time, staff's commitment, was to try to find some CNG vehicles and also to explore opportunities for electric vehicles for paratransit. And so with the board adopting that Ohio contract that you had mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we're back on course for purchasing CNG vehicles, and we, as staff, have had a couple of meetings with an electric vehicle manufacturer, and hope in the near future, throughout the summer, we'll be working on a RFI, basically a request for information, to send out to this electric vehicle manufacturer and see if there's see if they have the ability, to respond and manufacture an electric vehicle for us to test in our paratransit fleet.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on this item? If not, then is there a motion to adopt item H? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. Item I is a resolution adopting the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority fiscal year 2025 budget and directing the administrator to implement the budget.
Good morning.
Suzanne, you're
We are
going
now
to-
at the end of our very lengthy agenda, so I don't know that I'd call this the grand finale, but maybe it is. FY25 budget's pretty riveting. So in your packets, you'll have the handouts that's going to have a little bit more detail than what I'm going to present to you today. On April 29th, we presented this budget to the Finance Committee, so we've walked through more detail with them on our budget, and they've recommended approval of this budget to the board. So what I'm presenting to you today is pretty high level. So I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have about the more detailed items in the budget. So I would also just want to mention that on Tuesday, the City Council adopted the Oklahoma City's annual budget, and within that, there was $42 million of general fund supporting public transportation and on-street parking. So we're grateful for that, and due to projected lower sales tax collections that they were anticipating, all the city departments were asked to take a budget reduction. And so Embark, one of our reductions, was the elimination of the Spokies Bike Share program. We did put forward a couple of other budget reductions. Thankfully, those were not brought to council, so we did not have to actually impact any other service that we provide other than Spokies. So in light of all the departments having to take that budget reduction, we're thankful that our reduction is actually less than what we had anticipated at the very beginning of the process. All right, so here is our overview of our operating budget for fiscal year 25. I'll point out at the header is the amended FY24 budget. So Last month, the board approved an amendment to our current budget. So what you're seeing in comparison here is our amended budget to our new fiscal year budget. So it's an increase of $3.5 million, which is 5%. The adopted budget, it's an increase of $5 million, 8%. So that amendment did get us a little bit closer to our FY25 adopted budget. Like I mentioned in your packets, you've got more detail broken down by the different transit modes, as well as Norman and off-street parking. So this is the combined operating budget. Some of the major budget changes, I'll walk you through those. So in our base budget, whenever we start this process, there's always going to be an increase in our personnel costs, because what's looked at is our base cost of our personnel, then added onto that is the expected merit increases to benefits, that kind of thing. So we started out the year with $3 million increase in our personnel costs. And I would just also want to, just to clarify, this is in relation to our FY24 adopted budget. So I just mentioned that our amended budget was a $3.5 million increase, so I just wanted to make sure we're not confused there. This is looking at our adopted budget, and so the $3 million increase compared to that. It also added an increased cost for bus repair, parts, and supplies of $750,000. We have been talking about our supplies pretty much all year when we look at our financial reports, so this $750,000 should definitely give us a real boost in that budget and help us fund the rising costs that we've seen with the supplies. The funding for streetcar operating costs increased $211,000. And I thought, in light of the two agreements that you all just approved, I'd mention $211 may seem like a fairly small amount in relation to the other increases. We had some savings, so it would have been more. There's a 6.5% increase to the cost with Herzog to manage the streetcar for us. But we did see a savings in some other areas, primarily in insurance. And so overall, the cost increase for streetcar from the prior fiscal year was $211,000 increase. Our budget also added funding to more closely align overtime budget with expenses. So the $457,895 doesn't quite get us to fully funding our overtime costs, but it definitely is moving us in a better direction to help fund some of those costs that we see for overtime. The state subsidy, advertising and interest was increased by $1.1 million. So I've mentioned a couple of times that our state subsidy was $1 million, and now it's $1.9 million, so we've increased our revenues to account for that. We've also seen some good boosts in our advertising, so we increased our revenues for that, and of course interest has been an area that we've captured some additional revenue. This budget also increases revenue for the 5310 and DHS partnerships by $306,000. And then finally, I already mentioned in my opening that in our budget, we've removed the Spokies service mode, and that is a reduction of $197,000. More details will come to the board next month, but I thought I'd just give an outline of the plan with Spokies. So we have been working with a private sector company to take over the operations of Spokies. And with that, in this agreement that we're working on with them, part of that agreement is for them to enhance the services, working with some stakeholder groups, some stakeholder cycle groups to look how we can improve that system and even expand the mobility options into some other additional neighborhoods. So that will be part of the plan moving forward. We anticipate that the customer experience will not change. Spokies brand will stay intact. The mobile app that they're using to rent the bike will be the same. And we'll also continue to have Spokies in our trip planning. So from the user side of things, they shouldn't experience any difference from what they experience right now. And so next month, we will have an item for the board to consider approving an agreement with this private sector company. And we're looking forward to that taking place July 1st. They've committed to being able to do that by July 1. So here's our combined operating. This pie chart really just shows you how our budget's broken down. This is just transit, so parking, off-street parking is not included in this. So overall, excuse me, I misspoke, parking is included. This is our overall combined operating pie here. So the bus is $48 million of that $66 million budget at 73%. Norman is $3.9 million, which is 6%. I do want to mention that Norman has to be in our budget, so we have budget authority to expend, but Norman is fully cost recovery. We do not incur expenses for Norman. We actually have a little bit of revenue that's in our, some revenue that we acquire from Norman. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear. This is not an expense that we incur. Parking is $6.3 million of our budget, 9%. Streetcar is $7.2 million, 11%. And then ferry is a little over 1% of our budget at $966,000. So that is conclusion of my budget presentation, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Are there any questions or comments, James?
Yes, and maybe this is something I need to say as well to City Manager Freeman. So a couple weeks ago at a council meeting, as we were in our budget process, I made a comment that I often feel when council is in the budget process that the cake feels very baked and that it doesn't feel like I get to, or the other council members really get to change the direction the budget's heading. I would amend that to say that I was very happy that at the start of this process, Spokie's was, on this sort of private sector chopping block. And I'm grateful that you all, ACM and, and Jesse and, Suzanne, I think those of you who took seriously the concerns that some of my residents had about Spokie's going away or even being privatized, you heard those concerns. You didn't just hear them, but you're now working with this, and more details will come, but you're working with this private sector provider to figure out how are we strategically going to be able to enhance that service. And that to me represents a responsive government. And so I know too often we hear critiques, and so I think sometimes it's worth expressing gratitude to not just elected officials, but the staff. And so I know the work's not quite done, but I'm encouraged, and especially encouraged about the responsiveness that you all exhibited in this moment. So kudos.
Good. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you very much.
I'm just going to awkwardly stand here because the next item will be mine as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
while you approve the payroll and claims.
We need a motion on adopting the resolution. It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Item I passes. So now we're moving on to ratification of claims and payroll for the period of April 2nd to April 30th, 2024. And then item B is ratification of payroll and vendor claims for May 1st through May 29th. So item A, are you going to comment on that, or?
Not the claims and payroll, but the
Okay.
financial report.
Okay, for item A then, which is the April items, is there any comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to ratify? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Item A passes. Item B then is for the May period. Are there any questions or comments on the May? If not, then is there a motion to ratify? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Item B passes. Then item 8 is the receiving of our financial reports, and this is COPTA schedule of revenue and expenses budget to actual for the month ending April 30th, 2024. And Suzanne is going to talk about that.
Yes. I suppose it's pretty intentional to put the budget at the end, so I could just segue into our FY24 financial report. We're at 10 months into the fiscal year, so this is going to be for through April 30th. So we'll start on page 2, which is our transportation operations. And again, we had the board approved the amendment to the FY24 budget. So the statement that you're looking at includes the numbers from that amendment. So let's just start with our overall. Our revenues exceeded our expenses by $300,000. So we are on track there. I would point out to you footnote number 4 at the very last footnote there mentions that there's some unrecorded expenses for the month of April. It's an estimated amount of $300,000. If you were to plug that in, we've basically had a wash from revenues to expenses. So I wanted to point that out to you all. If we also can go up to the revenue section and look at the federal grant line, We know that our federal grants is certainly a large portion of our revenues that we talk about often. So our full year's budget is $8.5 million, and year-to-date, we've collected $4 million. So I thought I'd walk you through where we expect to end this fiscal year with our federal grants. In the month of April, we did take a draw of $2.5 million. It posted on May 1st, so that's why it's not on the April statement. It will be on the May statement, so that $4 million now moves up to about $6.5 million. And in this current month, we plan on taking that last $1.5 million draw, so we will be meeting, $2 million draw, so we will be meeting our budget for federal grants. That is our anticipation, that $8.5 million will be collected this fiscal year. If we go down a few lines to the state government subsidy, I already mentioned this to you, but an update on the collection of that subsidy. We've collected 2 of the 3 payments that we will receive this year. In fact, this week we received the final payment, and it'll be on the June financial statement. So that entire budgeted revenue of $1.7 million will be collected this year. And then finally, I want to point out the city general fund subsidy. You'll notice that there's a positive $2.4 million variance. That is going to be, the explanation on that is April also included May's subsidy. So we're just ahead. With the financial system change, they've been making sure that we have access to the funds that we need, so they did it a little bit early. In the end, we will not be over budget. We didn't get any extra general fund subsidy, so that will be a $0 variance by the end of this fiscal year. But I just want to point out we're just a little ahead. I'm not planning on walking through the other financial statements for the other transit modes this morning, but I will mention that subsidy, the April subsidy also included May's subsidy in Spokies, River, and Streetcar as well. So you'll see variances on all of those reports, and that's what that's from. So the final report I'll talk about is our parking operations, which is page 4. So our revenues exceeded our budgeted projections in all of those categories. In fact, if we look at from this point in time last year, we're up almost $700,000 in revenue for our parking operations. The most noteworthy is the event and transient parking. You'll see it's up $473,000 from where we had budgeted at this point in the year. And we've had a very busy month in April with events, with the Thunder Playoffs, the Arts Festival, as well as the marathon. So that really gave us a good boost in our event parking. Our overall expenses are at $4,227,000 over budget under budget about 5% overall. And our revenues exceeded the expenses by $1.7 million. So that's my final comments for our financial statement, but of course, happy to answer any questions.
Are there any comments or questions on the financials?
I'm going to say something I would never imagine me saying, but parking. I attended Galaxy Con. It was a convention, little sci-fi thing at the convention center. And your comment about the Thunder and the parking and these sorts of things, I should go ahead and voice this now, so I'll forget otherwise. The event organizers were just, tickled pink by the convention center. They thought it was an exceptional site. They thought the staff, they thought Visit OKC were exceptional host. They said this, they're on film saying this right before I cut the ribbon with the katana sword. So they said, but they had a comment that we should know, which is that the parking garage that's adjacent, right, to the convention center, right, to the Omni, when the arena finds itself under construction and eventually constructed at the new site, and we're having conversations about a parking garage there for the arena, that the event organizers for GalaxyCon were happy to hear that, because I guess we have agreements when it comes, we were in the playoffs, right, with the Thunder, and so there are agreements about the spaces there at the parking garage near the convention center. Well, we had a lot of folk who were attending GalaxyCon, not just here, because, Data from Star Trek was here, so they're coming in from Dallas and Kansas City, etc. I was there more for Terry Farrell from Hellraiser 3, to be very, very clear, who I guess is also on Deep Space Nine. I didn't know that, no offense, Star Trek people. But, thank you, but I just want us to be very aware as we're moving toward that new arena and the parking garage there, that we really do need to think about the use of this parking garage here for the conventions that will be happening at that convention center. That really, they were worried about, had the Thunder kept going, right, in the playoffs, which of course we would have wanted that to be the case, it would have actually limited the parking ability of people who were staying at the Omni and visiting from around the region there that day. I don't like advocating for parking garages, famously. But I have to admit in this moment what I heard that day from those event organizers. So I just wanted to say that as we're thinking about those two, the new parking garage and, you know.
Can I
We
share
also-
a comment on?
We also have surface parking on the south side of the convention center. I don't know how utilized that was for
Huge.
your event.
Yeah.
Full, completely full,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
We just, if I could just say real quickly that certainly appreciate the comments and getting the direct feedback, you know, through you from somebody who was trying to host an event is incredibly helpful. We also have regular communications with the city manager's office, special projects coordinator, Sue Hollenbeck, who is aware of just about anything happening event-wise in Oklahoma City. And it does become a challenge. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's something that staff works diligently with. It's like we have these surges where events come in, and it's like, how do we accommodate those surge parkers when we know we have these contractual obligations to reserve certain amount of spaces? It's really something we've been dealing with, and it's a good problem to have. We have a lot of customers. But we also have similar situations over at the Prairie Surf Studios garage where, you know, sometimes we have to basically deny access to people sometime in the middle of the afternoon to be able to park there because we have to reserve those spaces for, you know, other events. But all that said to say is that, yeah, it's something that goes even beyond us. We work with other people that are involved in the events. And I think another good reminder here is that, yes, with additional parking being part of the arena project, it should allow us to be able to leverage that convention center garage for really its intended purpose, meaning it was sized for the Omni Hotel, events at Scissortail, parking for large conventions versus, you know, some of the Thunder Games or Paycom events. So it's just kind of a matter of time, but hopefully that additional parking structure, and I certainly understand your position, trustee, on additional parking in the downtown area, but in that particular case, I think that additional parking structure will allow us to not run into this issue in the future. And then finally, I won't get into a lot of details, but we will share this information with the board as it becomes more of a final product to review. But I think it's important for the board to know that we as staff are already working on an interim parking plan with the understanding of the timing of the arena, that it is very likely we will not have parking in the Prairie Surf Studios facility for next basketball season and the events that occur at Paycom at that time. So we're working on that plan now, and it'll be something that we'll share with the board as we get later into the summer, preparing for, again, our contractual agreements with some of our great customers.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on our budget to actual? If not, is there a motion to receive our financials? It's been moved and seconded. Please vote electronically. Motion passes. We're moving on into our program reports. The first one is the Bus Rapid Transit update. Jesse?
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, trustees. Hope everyone's having a great day. Before I jump into the presentation, I wanted to share a quick story with you guys. So as I often do prior to the presentation, go out, grab some pictures of things going on along the alignment to be able to share. One of those photos was at the Main and Broadway stop, so right down the street here. As I was coming up to the platform, I noticed a couple was getting off of the BRT bus, retrieving their bikes from the bike rack, and they were chatting about what they were about to do downtown. So as I do, I interjected myself into their conversation and asked kind of what was going on, if they enjoyed the ride, and kind of asked where they were going. And so they started their journey up on the far northwest side of Oklahoma City. They rode their bike over to the park and ride location, loaded their bikes, hopped on the BRT, came downtown, and then they were just going to ride their bike around downtown. Right? So I thought that was pretty awesome. They're using the Rapid Northwest exactly as it was intended to get folks to where they wanted to go. What I thought was also interesting was they were first-time riders, right? So they hadn't used public transit in Oklahoma City before. They actually had lived in LA, and they moved back to Oklahoma City, their hometown, and they were very, very excited to see what the board has allowed public transit to do in Oklahoma City. So just wanted to share that story real quick with you guys. That was pretty cool. So, all right, so let's jump into the report. Let's talk a little bit about ridership, right? So we're talking about April of 2024. Our cumulative monthly total for April is 36,000, just shy of 37,000 riders. Our average daily ridership for the month of April, just a little over 1,200 riders per day. So pretty fantastic. Next slide here is our cumulative total since launch. So December of 2023 through April, we've carried 162,000 customers. And then again, that cumulative average daily ridership is just a little over 1,000 per day. And then the next slide here kind of shows those month totals. So from December through April, our average monthly ridership is just a little over 32,000. If you'll notice, April was our best month so far. Again, nearly 37,000 customers took the Rapid Northwest. All right, and then like I said, I was out downtown taking some photos. Earlier in the agenda, we approved the item to Rudy Construction for those ancillary projects. I wanted just to take a moment to provide a little bit more detail of what those projects are, right? So this first one here, we'll be adding concrete and pavers in 3 different locations downtown to match the Project 180 standard and to improve maintenance at platforms. So what do I mean when I say maintenance at platforms? So in this photo here, you'll notice that little patch of grass right there. So that will be removed. We'll place concrete and pavers there, again, to match that Project 180 standard. And then I'm going to show the next slide here. This is at Main and Broadway, same situation. We'll be removing the grass, putting in concrete and pavers to match that standard. So why are we doing that, and what's the maintenance issue there, right? So a lot of these properties downtown, they have underground vaults that are under the sidewalk, right? So equipment vaults and electrical vaults. And so what we have found is that these grassy areas, they allow water seepage into those vaults, right? Large OG&E equipment are oftentimes in those vaults. And so with that addition of concrete and those pavers, it's basically waterproofing that area and preventing that water seepage. So those are the 2 locations downtown. And then we did have this one location here at Elemental where we'll be doing similar improvements there. And then this slide here. So in the memo, we talked about cyclist safety improvement. And so in this slide, I've got the quick video here that shows some of those testing that we did early on in the project, right? You've heard us talk about the certifiable elements and the testing that we do. So really just want to give a shout out to Josh here. He was Josh Vaught was part of that testing, but also Eugene, Molly, and Kristen, again, launching that BRT. We did a lot of testing. And so what we noticed here was we have 3 BRT platforms where we only have one ramp on one side, and then we have railing, and there's not that area just past the bus. And so if you'll notice in this video, if you're a cyclist, to retrieve your bike, you have to basically step off of that 14-inch BRT platform curb height, right? And also there's a safety issue there that as you're doing that, you're in the blind spot for the bus operator. So with this additional project, what we'll be doing is removing that rail that you see right next to where Josh is stepping up on that platform, adding concrete just past that platform, so you'll essentially be able to step off the platform at a step height, step off into the street. The operator can see you as you're doing that and be able to retrieve your bike without stepping off that 14-inch platform. So there's 3 locations there where we'll be doing that. Northwest Expressway in Portland, that inbound stop. Robinson in Maine, that outbound stop, and 63rd and Meridian, the inbound stop. Also, in the item today, we approved additional bus markings. So, we oftentimes get the question, is the bus markings working? I would say yes, they are, right? So, perfect example of this, our buses stopped at the platform there at 23rd and Classen. No traffic in our lane. But we also think that if we added the additional markings, we think we can make some improvements there. So with that approval today, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be adding in the additional bus markings at major intersections along Classen and Northwest Expressway. And then finally, the item that we have all been waiting for, right? So the additional pedestrian access to Penn Square Mall. So you may be asking, why are we doing that pedestrian access at the intersection instead of the Rapid Northwest platform? So there's several reasons. The first one being we wanted to make sure that it was easily accessible for both the inbound and outbound stops, right? So you've got the westbound Northwest Expressway stop, and then you also got the eastbound one at Oak, where if you're trying to get to the mall, you'll get off, you'll cross the intersection, and then you'll easily have access to the parking lot there. But the other item was, if we were to do it at the platform, there's such a grade separation. There's about 10 to 11 foot grade separation that we would have had to do all these switchbacks to meet the ADA accessible, and the cost would have just exploded, right? So we elected to have it at the intersection. This cost includes the ADA ramp access to the parking lot, a concrete curb, integral curb, right? So that's the curb along the sidewalk, keeps you from going off into the grass, and then also a handrail. So all of it is ADA accessible. And that concludes the Rapid Northwest presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
Any comments or questions on bus rapid transit?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Next item is our marketing and community engagement report by Armando Reyes. Welcome.
Good morning, trustees. Thank you. This will be my inaugural presentation for marketing and community engagement, so look forward to presenting some good items that we've achieved and achievements we've had over the last few months. I'll start with our community engagement. So staff participated at the Ward 7 Town Hall and provided an update to residents in Northeast Oklahoma City about the improvements through OKC Moves, and also we provided updates on the MAPS 4 BRT recommended routes and how that may impact them, and we also had a BRT bus on site so they could understand what that BRT service may look like in their community as that project continues to move forward. We also provided support at 5 of the MAPS 4 BRT meetings through April and May, again, providing awareness to the public on Northwest Rapid service, but also just answering general questions about BRT in support of the Kimley Horn team. And then additionally, staff participated in the OKC Community Resource Fair for Camp Latina in the month of May. And I also wanted to point out executive leadership was asked to present the success of MAPS, also the OKC streetcar, and Rapid Northwest to the executive leadership team from Trinity Metro's leadership team that was here earlier in March. And so we provided them with information on those projects, and also provided them with a tour of the streetcar facility along with Rapid Northwest. Keeping on the theme of behind-the-scenes tours, we provided tours of the streetcar maintenance facility, river facilities, and Embark headquarters to our municipal leadership development team. There's approximately 40 participants that came in and left with a better understanding of how Embark serves the community, but also the services that we provide through the various aspects of our business. And now, as a marketer, the fun part. Our team is always looking and challenging to develop new pieces, customer collateral of how we promote our Embark services. So I just wanted to point out a few different pieces that we recently created. Here on screen, you'll see the Rapid Northwest handout. This was designed intentionally for those public meetings. We did design it in bilingual format because we were reaching out to the community in Southwest Oklahoma City. So we're going to be intentional with that. We also identified a need for a what I'll call a hotel piece, but also can be distributed to businesses along the current streetcar route. So we're developing a brochure that will be distributed this month out in the public to help promote streetcar ridership. And then finally, again, being intentional with our World Series, Women's College World Series Express Shuttle, we worked with Visit OKC and Downtown Oklahoma City to make sure that we got collateral out to hotels prior to the event so that we could work to get the word out and also make sure that as tourists were coming into our city, they were aware of the shuttle. And I'll talk more on that here in a little bit. Next, I'll talk about our Thunder playoff partnership. For those that didn't catch the playoff spirit, as a returning Oklahoman to the market, it was really great to see the transformation of downtown and how the Thunder and the community came behind this playoff push. And so Embark was fortunate to be part of those conversations with Thunder leadership to discuss how could we help get fans to the arena and also to Thunder up in the park as the Thunder entered the playoffs. So the Thunder took the first step of purchasing advertising with us and wrapping 2 streetcars, and you'll see there in the photo the playoff artwork that was used. But we took that a step further. We wanted to create a fun, interactive experience for those on the streetcar. So we teamed up with the Thunder to put everyone's lovable bison on the streetcar so you could take photos with it, make it a social media opportunity for folks just to have fun to a game, going to watch a game, or just out on a non-game day. So that was a fun part for us. Next, these are different examples of how Embark was elevated by some of these partnerships and also promoting our transit solutions as an opportunity for fans to come to the games. And so the first example was actually a video and post by the Thunder promoting the streetcar wraps as they were launched. And again, the benefit of being on their channels versus being on ours is exponentially. It helps amplify Embark as an option for fans coming to the game. The example on the right is KOCO did a wonderful job of promoting not only Rapid Northwest as an option to the game, but also making sure that fans had information about our parking garages and those options available to them. As we entered the second round of the playoffs, we executed a partnership with the Thunder to provide free rapid service on all home playoff game days, courtesy of the Oklahoma City Thunder. That led to an increase in ridership and was just fun for fans going to the game or even going to meet up with friends and family to watch the game somewhere. It was just an option for them to get an introduction to Rapid Northwest and learn how that service works. For fans coming to the game, they got a wonderful treat. We shout out to our operations team for working to create what I would call a VIP front door drop-off service. We were able to utilize the existing streetcar stop at the arena stop and use that as a BRT stop for this occasion. So 4 hours, starting 4 hours before the game, up to tip-off, we were able to deliver fans right there, front door service to enter the arena, and then post-game they were able to return there and take that trip home. In addition to the free rides, again, amplifying our message and our exposure of the brand, we are included in all of the Thunder formats, game day newsletters. So on the left, you'll see the newsletter where Free Rapid Rides was promoted. And we were also able to get additional exposure on the Thunder's Playoff Central page. And that's what you see there in the center of the screen. And we also use this as an opportunity to make sure that we were better updating our content for folks or attendees to the Paycom Center for events to update that information. So we created a landing page, embarkok.com/Paycom, that we now can distribute to the Paycom Center, to any other hotel. They can easily promote, hey, here are all the different public transit options that you might need to get to the Paycom Center. Finally, I'll close on the Thunder partnership with a post from transit enthusiast Ben Felder, complimenting that service during the playoffs and convenient access. I can personally attest to riding the service to Game 5. It was very convenient to park at the Park and Ride and ride this all the way, very seamless, all the way into the arena. And hearing from fans while I was on that bus, this is something that they want to continue. And so we will continue those discussions with the Thunder to see how we move that forward. Another partnership opportunity came our way through the marketing team at the Paycom Center. So they were wanting to promote the Nicki Minaj concert that was here in May. And so they purchased advertising at the arena stop that I mentioned there that you can see on your screen. But they also had this idea of turning the inside of a streetcar pink for a social media campaign. So we collaborated with them to make that dream come true. And this was kind of a behind-the-scenes photo shoot that we did with them. But it gave us that additional exposure of, again, promoting Embark services to an audience outside of our normal reach. And so in that partnership, we provided any attendees of the concert were able to show their event ticket and ride the streetcar for free that evening. And finally, our latest partnership that just concluded, the World Series Express service. That started on May 30th and ran through yesterday evening with the Oklahoma Sooners victory. This provided a shuttle from downtown to the Devon Park. And we had 2 buses this year that were wrapped, courtesy of our partnership with Visit OKC. The buses departed every 30 minutes, and I can confidently say in our 3rd year of service, we saw an over 200% increase in ridership this year. Part of that success was the addition of a second stop in the Bricktown area. And so again, to better serve those staying in hotels in the hotel district there. We continued the pickup at the convention center, but this was something that we look to grow again as we go into next year. And finally, on this screen, you'll see some of our current advertising. So currently we're promoting our 3rd Friday free service. You can also see an example of the advertising that we use for the Women's College World Series on our digital and social channels. Also an example in the middle for our Arts Festival. And so I'd like to give a shout out to my entire team for the work that they've done, but I'd also like to single out the work of Megan Henderson and Lloyd Rosen for their work that they've done here on the right for really creative promotional social media videos promoting the Rapid Rise Free with our partnership with the Thunder. It was a unique take for us this year. So, here you go. All right. And then in conclusion, some things to look forward to in the next report. We are continuing to look how we grow that ridership growth in Rapid Northwest. So we are hosting, from a business development standpoint, a lunch and learn tours with some businesses along the high employment centers and community groups along the route. So we're doing that later this month. Also, we'll be reporting back, the next report are results from our customer satisfaction survey. And again, continue to work on opportunities to promote all lines of service, but really focusing right now on rapid, streetcar, and river advertising. And that's my presentation, concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Armando. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, our 3rd presentation of a safety, security, and training report by Eugene Fritz. Good morning, Eugene.
Morning, trustees. It is still morning, right?
Depends. It depends how long you go. If we're going to be here, or we're going to be
I can go 2 ways. I can go New York mode to get us out of here quicker. Jesse said he would buy us lunch if it goes really long, so if I go slow.
Yay, Jesse.
All right, so some updates of what we're doing in the safety department. In training, so this is from this year, we have trained 29 employees to become bus operators. So 16 of those came in just with a Class D license, that's your typical driver's license. So in about 4 to 6 weeks, Byron and Tavis, Byron's in the back there, gets them up to speed to be bus operators. If we could do a little shout out to Laura Miller, our recruiter, is doing an amazing job getting us employees to train. On the security side, so we get, of the grant money we receive, 1% of that has to go towards security. So typically that's cameras, lighting, access control to the building. Those are the main ones. So on the left is the picture of the transit center property. In the middle is the building. The blue circles on the outside, those where the bays are, where the buses pull in and pick up passengers. All the blue dots are the additional cameras that we added to the outside. I believe there's 16 of them there, giving us a lot more coverage. Over on the right is a picture of what the cameras look like. And that's just another picture of the camera. And then I snagged this picture from Kristen. So this is the lighting that we've done at the TC when we did the TC improvements. So the security money goes towards lighting. So recently, the FTA started doing money for safety. So 0.75% of grant money has to go towards safety items. So this is new. So some of the things we are looking at to spend that money on is online safety training to help supplement the training that we're doing currently, and getting improved bus barriers that we have in our buses, and pedestrian alerts for the fixed route buses. So when the bus makes a turn, there'll be an alert on the outside of on the bus. And additionally, we are helping out with Santa Fe Station, the move, to make sure it's safe for our employees that are moving over there. This is making sure there's proper exits, no fire extinguishers, things along those lines, all things safety, so our employees are safe over there. Coming soon, so this is a slide that we've been using. So ODOT still has not updated their program standard. So once they update their program standard, I will be back to give you an update on how we updated our safety plan. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Thank you. Eugene.
All right, thank you.
There was collusion.
Many people are saying.
Okay, is there, I suppose now we need a motion to receive our program reports. Okay, is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, James, second. Laura, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, items from the trustees. James?
It's about lunch. So in the beginning.
Robert?
I'll buy your lunch.
Yeah. Meg?
Don't feel like you have to go that way.
Laura?
I've got nothing, thank you.
Steve?
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chairman. If I could just three
Please
quick
enlighten us.
things.
Okay.
So I wanted to congratulate staff on receiving a competitive grant award for $415,000. That is from the Innovative Coordinated Access and Community Grant Program through the FTA. So that will be grant money that we can plug into just continuing to improve our mobility management services. Also, I wanted to just really appreciated Armando's presentation. I wanted to add some additional context to the ridership that we've seen from the World Series Express bus. Armando had mentioned a percentage increase over last year, but that translates to we're doing about 450 trips per day that we've had that service stood up. So it's a significant amount of folks that are using that express service. And then finally, just a friendly reminder that in July, our board meeting will be on the 12th to account for 4th of July holiday and not wanting to impede anybody's travel plans. That's all I have. Tried to be quick.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, in social media, James, are we going to start calling you Pastor Cooper in the future?
Amen. Guess so, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all. We'll see you next month. We are adjourned.